Universal health care. What about economic inequality? We have people ask me, some of you have heard me in the past talk about the two Americas. And so the press always says to me, why do you talk about the two Americas? It's what is that, the rich and the poor? No. The two Americas are big multinational corporations and really rich Americans and everybody else. Those are the two different Americas. It's not just the rich and the poor. You look at what's happening to middle-class families, the vast majority of Americans. Last year, the top 300,000 income earners in America earned more than the bottom 150 million. You think we don't have any? We have the worst economic inequality we've had since the Great Depression. And it didn't happen by accident. You know, you look at what George Bush has done, more and more tax cuts for the richest people in the country. The effects of globalization, which makes it easier for people with a lot of money and a lot of education to do better. The effects of globalization have been accelerated by George Bush. He's made it more help to the people who need the least help. Well, that's not what we should be doing. We should be doing the opposite. And besides the middle class, universal health care is a big issue to strengthen the middle class. But besides the middle class, we have 37 million people in this country who wake up in poverty every day. How in the world can that be? And how can we think it's okay? You know, it'd be easy to turn our backs on them and pretend they're not there. You know, and one of the great myths that exist in America is that people who live in poverty are just lazy and no account, they won't work. The vast majority of them work. Many of them work full time. The problem is they can't earn enough to support their families. And people who say to me there's nothing you can do, there's a lot you can do. Here's some simple examples. The Congress finally, after a decade, raised the national minimum wage. I'm glad about that. But they raised it. It's going to go to $7.25 an hour. It's not enough. The minimum wage should be at least $9.50 an hour, and it ought to be indexed so that it goes up on its own without having to go back to the Congress. There are other things we can do to lift people out of poverty. We need to make it easier for workers to organize themselves into unions so that they can earn a decent wage, have pension protection. We need to help people save. You know, one of the things that I've suggested is that we match the savings of middle class and low income families. In other words, if you save $1, we match the dollar. So we created an incentive for you. We have the worst savings rate in the world, in the industrialized world. Americans don't save anything. We have a negative savings rate. What that means is if something goes wrong, you got nothing to fall back on. So we need to help with that. So we ought to help people save. I call these get-ahead accounts. But in addition to that, we ought to crack down on these predatory and payday lenders who are preying on our most vulnerable families. We need a national predatory lending law. And then access to college. George Bush and the Bush administration have taken billions of dollars out of the federal budget to pay for financial aid for kids to go to college. This is insane. Anybody who's had a child turn 18 who wants to go to college knows how much this costs. I mean, the tuition costs are going up and up and up at the same time that wages are not going up. My idea about what to do about this is called College for Everyone. We say to every young person in America, if you graduate from high school, qualified to be in college, and commit to work at least 10 hours a week, we pay for your tuition and books. Very simple, very straightforward. Now, and by the way, I wanted to see if this would work. So we've started it. A couple of years ago, Elizabeth and I started it in a low-income area of eastern North Carolina. And it works, and the reason it works is because we don't give it to them. They have to actually work for it. And on top of that, when they graduate from college, they don't have this huge burden of debt that so many young people are faced with when they're finally able to get out of college.